Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2018 and the third part of this experiment where we're taking a look at what would happen if you gave a Scottish lower league team £1 billion. Now so far we've gone 20 years into the future, and as you can see, Edinburgh City have managed to rise all the way up and then get relegated back down to the third division before coming up again and now establishing themselves as a major team in the Ladbrokes Premiership. They've still got a decent amount of money in the bank, some £200 million, which they will be spending. And today we're going to go forward to the year 2050, so 13 years ahead, to see how they get on. And we will then assess as to whether they need any more money or other financial incentive to go forward. So this will be a continuation of the experiment up to now. They've had £1 billion to spend, they've got £200 million left. Can they win the Scottish Premiership or not? I think any other cup competition or European success might be a bit difficult at this point. They could win some of the Scottish Cups, that's not beyond the realms of possibility. But the question is, can they win the Premiership? So let's go forward to the year 2050 and see how they can do. But before we do that, make sure to drop a like on the video down below. So let me know if you guys are going to want another part to this or not. And let me know in the comments whether you think they're going to win this Premiership after 20 plus years of this experiment. Well, we are now 20 years in, another 13 years into the future, which makes it the year 2050. So we've got over 30 years ahead since originally giving them this £1 billion. And if we go forward through each season very quickly, you can see the Betfred Cup didn't go well, their league campaign didn't go well. They went out the Scottish Cup very early on. They had a good end to the season in the Championship group, but they did not manage to do well enough earlier in the season to really make a dent. But they did qualify for Europe for the first time in the club's history. They're in the qualifying round of the Europa League, but went out to Lech, which I think is a Polish side. So disappointed they didn't get past through that second qualifying round. Managed to do well in the Betfred Cup and actually beat Hearts on penalties to win the Betfred Cup. I think their highest trophy to this point, so a good season for them really. But they were knocked out of the Scottish Cup quarter-final in the Championship group, or in the relegation group actually, but perfectly safe there. The following season, no European football because they were in that relegation group, but did well until they went out in the second round of the Betfred Cup. Patchy league form left them in the relegation group for another season. The following year, again, Betfred Cup, they did well, getting through to the semi-finals, beat Aberdeen, and then beat Hearts 2-1 in the final, their second cup competition win in 3 seasons. And they were doing well in the Scottish Cup as well, beating Annan in the quarterfinals, but losing to Rangers in the semi-final. They were at least in the Premiership Championship group this time, but still unable to make a dent at the top of the league. The following season, again, no European football, but doing reasonably well in the Betfred Cup for going out on penalties to Hamilton, which is disappointing. Got through to the semi-finals of the Scottish Cup and then lost to Partick Thistle. They're losing to teams they shouldn't be losing to. Struggled in the Championship group for another season, but still qualified for Europe. And this time they did make the third qualifying round, but were beaten 5-1 by Middlesbrough over 2 legs. Knocked out the quarterfinals of the Betfred Cup, and in the Scottish Cup made it to the semi-finals and beat Celtic on penalties. And in the Scottish Cup final, they managed to win in extra time against St Johnstone. They actually went 2-0 up before being pegged back thanks to Marcelo. But it means they've now won the Betfred Cup and the Scottish Cup. They're also in the Championship group, but very clearly did not win the title on that form. But their first ever Scottish Cup and the biggest title they have ever won means that they actually didn't qualify. Oh no, they went straight into the group stage of the Europa League this time, which is the furthest they've ever made it in Europe. They actually beat Standard Liège as well, managed to draw with Feyenoord and lose to Roma, but then lost another game. Couple of draws as well would not be enough to get them to the knockout stages. No, it was enough to get them to the knockout stages. And they drew with Frankfurt at home, drew 1-1 away from home as well. A late goal stopping them there, and I think they were knocked out at the second or in the first knockout round there, and could not make it through. But they went through in penalties against Kilmarnock in the Scottish Cup semi-final, and then won at their second Scottish Cup there against Rangers 1-0. 2 major Scottish competitions, or Scottish Cups that they've now won now, 3 Scottish competitions in all. But the question is, can they win that Premiership? And it's still not happened yet. But they do have another group stage campaign here in the Europa League. They got 2 defeats in 3, and then managed to beat Galatasaray again, but lost to Dynamo Kiev. I don't know if that's enough for them to go through, and it wasn't, and they were knocked out of the Scottish Cup at the 5th round, so not the best season for them there. No European football the following season. Betfred Cup went poorly, and knocked out by Celtic in the Scottish Cup, and we're getting much closer to the present day here. They qualified for Europe though again, and managed to make it through the qualifying rounds to take on the group stage. Lost to Rennes, lost to Frankfurt, drew with CSKA Moscow, and then lost away. That 5 defeats from 6 there, not good enough, and out in the quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup. But again, in that Championship group stage, knocked out the Betfred Cup, no European football, and beaten by Celtic in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup. And again, this time they made it to the Champions League qualifying round, so I think they must have finished 2nd in the league, and they actually managed to make it to that game here against Dynamo Kiev, but a 3-2 defeat at home meant that they did not have the goal difference to go through, and away goals took Dynamo Kiev into that 4th qualifying round. I actually took them though straight into the Champions League group stage, so they were so close there, just away goals deciding it, but did very well in their group here, getting 3 wins and a draw from the first 4, drew with Valencia and then beat CSKA Moscow, so they would have won their group that season. And then in the knockout stages, unfortunately came up against Arsenal, and even then it was tight. Arsenal had men sent off in both games, but it was not enough for Edinburgh to get the win. They went through the Scottish Cup semi-final but lost to Hibernian. And then taking us to the most recent season, no European football this time, but the league going very, very well. And it'll be interesting to see where they finish. They didn't win the Scottish Cup, but let's have a quick look at this Premiership table, and we can see if they ever managed to win the league. I'm pretty sure they didn't, based on them never getting Champions League group stage. But if we have a look here, you can see Rangers won the title this season. If we go back to the very first season of this part and have a look at that league table, you can see they finished 4th, and then they finished down in 7th despite getting 57 points. This is a frustrating thing really, isn't it, with the Scottish league system. Again, winning the relegation table by quite some way actually, and then the following season they did manage to finish 2nd that season, but 15 points off Celtic. The following season they finished in 5th place, then 3rd, 4th, then 5th place, and then this season's quite interesting. They're only 9 points off the top, and it was won by Rangers. Celtic finished all the way down in 6th place before coming back to win the league the following season, and then Celtic won it here by just 4 points ahead of Edinburgh City, so close to winning the title that season. 2nd the following season, and 2nd again this season, finishing just 3 points behind Rangers, so close to winning that first title. But if we have a look here at their finances, Edinburgh City, you can see there is a slight problem in that they do not have much money left. They've got £147 million left. We've gone 30 years into the future and they have not managed to win the league yet. You can see they're in their much bigger stadium now, 15,000 capacity seated stadium, built 2038, and they've got some decent facilities as well. So they've been investing in the club, and it's helped them really become a sustainable team in the Scottish League. So I'm sure eventually they would be able to kick on and win the title. If we have a look at their transfer history and go back again to 37-38, then you can see £8 million spent, then 9, 25 million spent that season, then 38 million, 42 million pounds being spent. They're definitely splashing cash there. 44 million, the most that they spent in one season, or 45 million, the most they've spent in one season, and a few £11 million signings there, including from English teams, from Celtic, Rangers. They're bringing in big names, and it's going to do them a lot of good in the hunt for a Premiership title. But if we look at the value of the team players, it's not that high, and there is work to do there. So I'm not sure what really to do now. They're going to need more money. If we're going to go 10, 20 years further in the future, they are going to need more money. So drop a like on the video if you'd like to see another part to this experiment, and make sure to let me know in the comments if you think they need another £1 billion. I'm not sure I want to mess with the reputation, but I might give them a sugar daddy. So let me know down in the comments, and make sure to subscribe so you see the next part of this experiment in a couple of days' time. But until next time, see ya.